Welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, I will be showing you how to create a chatbot in Flutter using GPT-3 model developed by OpenAI. The latest ChatGPT AI chatbot is tuned by GPT 3.5 model. GPT-3 is a much larger and more general purpose language model. However, the recent release of ChatGPT or GPT 3.5 is a smaller, more specialized language model that is designed to generate natural sounding responses in conversation. In this tutorial, we will be building a chatbot application in Flutter using GPT-3 language model. In this Flutter application, I will be using this HTTP package to make network requests to the GPT-3 API. I will be adding the package dependency into the Flutter project. To prevent any version error, make sure you are using the same environment SDK version as mine. Once we added the package, we can now run the Flutter application. In this project, I have also added one asset, which is an OpenAI logo image. You can use any image that you prefer. If you're not sure how to add local image into your Flutter project, feel free to check out our image asset tutorial. In this project, I have created a very simple Flutter application with just a scaffold and an app bar. The body of the scaffold is empty, and we will go through step by step to build the chatbot application in this tutorial. And this is how the application looks right now. Here, I have also created two constant color, which is one background color and one bot background color. For a chatbot application, firstly, we need to have a chat body. However, the chat body is more complicated, so we will build the submit text field and also the submit button first. Below the chat body, I will add a circular progress indicator to indicate that the bot is typing. And the visibility of this circular progress indicator will be controlled by a isLoading boolean. And the isLoading boolean is tagged as late, so I will initialize the isLoading boolean to false in init state. After the circular progress indicator created, now we will be creating an input text field widget and a submit button widget. Let's start with creating input text field widget. Now I will be adding some customization to the text field widget, such as text capitalization, style, adding a text editing controller, and input border. The reason to assign a text editing controller to the text field controller is for us to retrieve the input value. And this is my text field customization for the chatbot application. You can customize based on your preference. And here I have some typo error. Make sure you have the same name of the widget. And when I do a hot restart, this is the text field that I've created. The text field is on top right now is because the chat body is not built yet. Once we added the chat body, the text field will push down to the bottom of the device. After the input text field created, now we will be creating a submit button beside the text field. And the submit widget will be a send icon button. We will leave the onPressed function as blank right now, and we will come back once all the UI part is done. To prevent the user from spamming the send button, we will control the visibility of the send button with the isLoading boolean. When I hot restart the application, the send button is added beside the text field. To make the send button more visible, I will change the background color to the same as the text field background color. Now we have completed the UI for the text field input and the submit button. Next, we will start building the chat body. The chat body widget will return a list view. This is because all the input chat will be stored in an array. And list view is one of the most convenient and efficient way to display an array. Here I will create a chat message widget as a placeholder for each item in the array. And the item count for the list view builder is the length of the array. And we will add a scroll controller to control the scrolling of the list view. For the message array, it will receive a list of chat message object. The reason is because we wanted to identify which message comes from the user, which message comes from the chatbot. And an object can have more than one attributes or variables. Now let's create the chat message model class. Now I will create a chat message type enum that will tag the chat message object from user or from chatbot. And now for the chat message class, it has two variables. One is the input text string and another one is chat message type enum. And now we have completed a simple chat message model. Now I will be creating the chat message widget. This chat message widget defines the UI style for each chat message object. For the chat message widget, I will check the chat message type enum. If it comes from bot, then it will display a different UI. If it comes from user, it will display another different UI. For the message comes from the bot, I will display a circle avatar with a child of the asset image that I added in the project. For the chat comes from the user, I will display a circle avatar with a person icon. After adding the circle avatar icon, we will now add the content of the chat beside the icon. Now we have created the chat message widget UI. Now we can pass the data into this widget from the Listview builder. Firstly, we need to retrieve each message content and its enum type from the chat message object in the message array and pass both value into the chat message widget. Once we added the values into the chat message widget, we can now hot restart the application. And you can see that the text field has moved down to the bottom of the device. And when we click on the send icon button, nothing happens. This is because we have not added any onPressed function. Here comes to the most important part, which is making HTTP requests to GPT API. Before we get into the details, let me introduce you OpenAI. OpenAI is an artificial intelligence research laboratory. They have created many AI applications that surpass any previous AI product in the market. In order to call the ChatGPT API, firstly we need to get a valid API key from OpenAI. The API keys are free, you just have to create an account. And most importantly, do not share your API key with others or expose it in the browser or other client-side code. Just click on Create New Secret Key and it will generate a key for you. Once you get the API key, store it separately from your main code. After we added the API key, now we can start creating the HTTP request. This future function will accept a string parameter, which is the user input. Firstly, we need to get the API key value that we stored and pass it to the header of the API request. Now we have the API key value and a URL value. We can now create HTTP post requests. Don't forget to import the HTTP package. Add the API key to the header's authorization. And for the API request body, we will add some requirement parameters. And in the prompt parameter, we will pass in the user input value that received in this function. And now we have created a HTTP post request. Once we make the HTTP post request through the network, it will return with a response. In order for us to see the content of the response, firstly we need to decode the response. Network response always comes in JSON format, which is a key value pair. And in this tutorial, I will use JSON decode to decode the response from the HTTP request. Once the JSON response decoded, I will return the required value. And now we have created our API function call. Lastly, we have to add the API function call and some actions in the send icon button on press. In the send icon button, we will have three main actions, which is display the user input, call the chatbot API function, and lastly, display the chatbot response. Let's start with display user input. Firstly, we have to create a chat message object with the user input and a user enum and add the chat object into the message array. And also set the isLoading boolean value to true. Before we proceed to call the chatbot API, here I will store the user input to a variable and clear the text field. Here I will create the scroll down function that will animate the scrolling after the user input. Now we have completely added the action for display user input. Next, we will start calling the chatbot API. We have created the function API above. We just have to evoke the function. Pass the user input value into the generate response API function. And again, create a chat message model with the response from the chatbot API and store it in the message array. And because this response comes from the chatbot, so the chat message type enum will be chat message type.bot. And this is the complete code for call chatbot API action. And the last action, which is display chatbot response, actually we have done it when we add the chat message model from chatbot into the message array. After adding the values to the message array, again we will clear the controller and add a scroll down function. And now we have completely added the function code for send icon button onPressed function. Now let's hot restart the Flutter application and try out the chatbot feature. Seems like there are some error. Let's check the console terminal. Oh, there is a typo error. It should be application/JSON, not .json. And the error happens in the HTTP request header parameter with the content type key. Now let's hot restart and try again. Yay, we managed to get the response from the chatbot. Let's try out a few more conversations. And this is an amazing Flutter Chatbot application. I will upload this source code to GitHub and provide the link in the description below. Here comes to the end of the tutorial. If you like my video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next tutorial.